Here, this is me. This is how you get a hold of me. This is who I am, and the student assistance provider, I'll give you a link to the new student assistance program link for the Hartford School District. This Get Outraged. A lot of this was based on, and it's been added to since 2018 now. But it is significant content is used by permission of Make Smoking History out of Massachusetts. This is the agenda for tonight. Please interrupt if you have pertinent questions. You can either interrupt or put them in the chat, and the lovely Miss Emily Zanleone will alert me to any chat questions. So this is the overview. Many of you, I am not going to hit on cannabis and CBD in great detail. These are a part of, these are what youth, unfortunately, and adults are vaping. So I thought it was important to include those so that we could actually see what those were. So just a quick check-in. Is everybody still good?
Should I unmute? Yes, everybody's good.
Okay,
good to go. Sorry,
I forgot instead of you, so I can just see my screen. So
okay, perfect. Thanks for letting me know.
Thank you. So obviously the objectives. The purpose of tonight is really so that we all can learn more about these products and be cognizant and aware of if they are present. You'll see on the left-hand side, those are a typical, what you call vape pen, jewel, and a little pod is that small thing there. So obviously we all care very much about our youth, and vaping is detrimental to them and to their brain development. So we'll get into more of that later. What we're looking at currently with the Youth Risk Behavior Survey data in 2019, 50% of high school students in Vermont reported using e-cigarettes. That was Vermont-wide, 37% for Hartford School District. So we are, at that point, we were significantly lower than the state as far as e-cigarette use, but that is still incredibly high. I think any use is too high, but that's over 1 in 3 high school students in 2019 was using e-cigarettes. And of the tobacco use, e-cigarettes were what students were using. So on the right-hand side, you'll see the national 2020 youth tobacco survey. So that's the most recent data that we have. And so in high school students, you'll see from 2019 to 2020, that has dropped almost 10%. And that has dropped in middle school students as well, significantly from 2019 to 2020 nationally. This is national data. We just took our most recent youth risk behavior survey for the high school and middle school this fall. And there's more information on that student assistance program site. And we should be getting those results. We don't get those results back until next fall. So yeah, we do have a long lag time for that. But nationally, e-cigarette use is declining, which is a good sign. And hopefully locally that's reflected as well. So most of you know vaping devices and e-cigarettes. We're trying to call them e-cigarettes now because vaping sounds so harmless, like vapor and vaping, when really we want to call them e-cigarettes. They contain nicotine, which in and of itself is an incredibly addictive substance and I wrote in there a half-life of 90 minutes. And what that means is that the half life of any substance is when you're going to start having detox symptoms and withdrawal symptoms from from that substance. So every 90 minutes, somebody's going to be going into withdrawal if they're dependent upon nicotine. So you'll see about every hour and a half, they will start to have cravings. They'll start to get fidgety. Um, they may, dependent upon the level of addiction, they may start getting kind of tremulous and sweaty and nervous and maybe wanting to go to the bathroom or go outside or get more nicotine to replace the nicotine that's being processed out of the body. Um, we can't be sure what is in these products and how much nicotine they contain. They're starting to get regulations now, but typically one pod is about one pack of cigarettes, the equivalent nicotine that of one pack of cigarettes. And we are seeing young people who are using several pods per day. That is not uncommon, unfortunately, if someone is addicted to these e-cigarettes. So they're talking, well, I use 1 to 3 pods a day. That's the equivalent of 1 pack to 3 packs of cigarettes a day, which is astounding. I mean, usually you do not see that level of addiction in cigarettes. Somebody doesn't get to a pack to 3 packs a day, maybe ever, but certainly not until they're a good 5 to 10 years in to smoking cigarettes. With these, with this vaping, with the e-cigarettes, it happens much, much sooner where they could be within a couple months that they're using several pods per day. And it is just getting regulated. The first warnings on packages were printed in 2019. So just to give you an idea, these vaping, the e-cigarettes were developed in China in about 2006. They hit kind of mainstream, and they were created as a stop smoking product, was what they were originally put on the market for and approved for. Um, I'm just gonna scoot down this stuff. Why is I will get this question all the time from kids. You know, what's the harm in nicotine? What's wrong with it? Probably the number one thing is that it is a poison. It's an incredibly potent insecticide. So you'll notice if people are smoking or vaping outside, the 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 flies and gnats and mosquitoes are smart enough to stay away from the nicotine poison. So what does that say about us? You know, so this is one of the things I talk to kids about is it is a poison. It is so we certainly that's a number one reason I think not to use it. Number two, and a tie I would say is it's damaging that adolescent brain. So we do know that it doesn't matter what the substance is, but the younger that someone uses substances, the increased likelihood of addiction. That paired with a family history of addiction, the likelihood of addiction goes kind of through the roof. So we want to hopefully get kids so that they're not using or trying nicotine or other substances at all, but at least prolong that to the point where their brain is more developed. Hence, the age of 21 is the legal age of use for nicotine, alcohol, and cannabis now in Vermont. And that's really to get the brain more developed and to hopefully not have an onset of substance use disorder. And I think down through they have shown that youth who use e-cigarettes are more likely to become traditional cigarette smokers. And I think I already hit on they have a harder time quitting and become more addicted the younger they use. So the tobacco and vaping industries, so they target youth, and if you look at how they are targeting youth, it is through sweet, cheap, and easy to get products. And this is really across, this is what they do with alcohol. This is what they're starting to do with cannabis, is looking at what is sweet, cheap, and accessible. So you will see, I have had kids talk about TikTok has vaping ads, but it's not vaping because there are now restrictions. There were not in the past. Initially, vaping and e-cigarette use was promoted by influencers on Instagram, to targeted at young people. So these are people that they look up to and they follow on Instagram. They were paying those folks hundreds of thousands of dollars to just do vape tricks and to promote their products. Now there is some regulation around that, just like with cigarette advertising and nicotine advertising. TikTok, as of today, a kid was saying, well, is it dangerous to vape other things? Like on TikTok, they have an ad to vape melatonin. And so my response is always, your lungs do not want to take in things in your lungs do not want aerosol, which is really what e-cigarettes are. They don't want smoke either. So you need to talk to your parents and a doctor about even taking melatonin, but certainly ingesting it through smoking. You don't smoke or vaporize medicine. But that is what the latest kind of industry tactic is. And they're also calling them diffusers because somehow that feels to them that it's less dangerous. So you'll also hear them talking about, because they are advertising them now as diffusers. So it's just some of the new jargon that they're trying to kind of put a new spin on e-cigarettes. So this is dated. So this kind of shows where that correlation, the direct correlation between dollars spent on an e-cigarette advertising and use of e-cigarettes among youth is directly correlated. So hopefully that is what we're seeing with those national data sets that we saw a few slides back, is that those advertising dollars, they are starting to be regulated. The unfortunate thing is that e-cigarettes are starting to be regulated and the advertising is regulated. However, we have a whole bunch of kids that are already hooked on nicotine. So anyway, we'll get to that later, but industry tactics. So like I said, sweet, there's over 10,000 flavors. Some states have started banning flavors. I'm on the Substance Misuse Prevention Council for the state of Vermont. They did ban flavors. However, the quote unquote easy way around this is that disposables were not subject to that ban. So we did make a recommendation to the legislature that this year in Vermont, they will hopefully be banning any flavored, so the refillables and disposables. So that's like the puff bars. Those are not subject to that flavor ban, but hopefully those will be encompassed under that, but they are not right now. They are cheap. And this is where we get into trouble as a border town. So Vermont just started a tax at 90+% on July 1st of 2019. It's actually 92%. New Hampshire, I don't want to just talk at you guys. Any guesses on what New Hampshire's tax rate on e-cigarettes is? Maybe Emily, don't say anything because you probably know this, but any guesses?
30.
Keep going down.
0. Aren't they no tax place?
No, that is, for a while they were 0. They just went into, so it was, so New Hampshire's 8% tax on e-cigarette products. All other tobacco products in New Hampshire are actually 65.03. I don't know why the 0.03. But all other cigarette products, so cigars, tobacco, smoked tobacco, to traditional cigarettes, are all 65%. So that's a huge difference in pricing. And that is part of the reason you see so many. I think we have 4 vape stores or vape product stores in Lebanon. It seems like a lot. That is because folks on those border towns are going over. So hopefully, amazing programs like Hartford Community Coalition work with other coalitions in the Upper Valley, um, to hopefully enact higher, to put more, to influence the legislature on the other side of the river, right? To make that more comparable to our tax rate, or somehow limit the access, right? Because we don't want them to be sweet. We don't want them to be cheap. And we also don't want them to be easy to get, to be accessible. So, this is another new thing. So the easy to get in Vermont, we did say in 2019, September 1st of 2019 in Vermont, it went from 18 to 21 to buy any tobacco or vape products, which was incredible. That also changed in New Hampshire as well. But I think that changed a year. It took like a year for that to change. So while that was happening, we want to make that higher to make sure that kids are not getting addicted earlier, and also to reduce the access. If you have older siblings, sometimes you have 18-year-olds that are in high school. 21 just limits that access. So sweet, I think most of you know this. They come in, the refillables can come in thousands of sweet, fruity flavors: cotton candy, fruit punch, mango. Your children learned any middle schoolers would have learned in the vaping advisory done last week. It shows kind of, I think it was 10,000 different flavors and combinations, and how they appeal to youth, and that it makes them seem harmless, which they are not. They still contain chemicals that can cause popcorn lung, which is the same thing that they found with factory workers in the 70s, would literally from fake buttered popcorn flavor is in these, and that creates a pretty major lung deformity that does not go away. So I think we all kind of can agree, not a lot of the, cotton candy and those flavors. Hubba Bubba, I think, was one of them. Those typically, and this is showing, this does not appeal to adults who are using. You can see that on the 25 to 29-year-olds. It's interesting, I think, how they did not have an age group of 18 to 25-year-olds or 21 to 25-year-olds. I would anticipate that would be higher than the 63%. And then this just breaks down kind of the 12 to 17-year-olds who report using flavoring as a primary reason for using a tobacco product, what they are using. So 81% of them said flavor was a major reason, and e-cigarettes were the highest used. Behind that, a hookah, behind that cigars, then smokeless tobacco, and pouches. If there's any questions about what these things are, we can just pipe in.
Jeanette, do you
Yeah.
mind? So I thought that said sinus pouches. I wasn't reading it very well. Can you
Right.
tell everybody what the pouches are for and what that's about?
Right. So those are smokeless tobacco. And so it's just a form they have, like, it's basically individual use, smokeless tobacco. Most of us who are of an older generation know of smokeless tobacco as or they call it chew, is just a tin, typically, that is a round tin that it's like free floating tobacco. These pouches are actually pre-packed, and so those pouches go in and are used just how you would use smokeless tobacco. Does that answer your question, Em?
Absolutely. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. And we have, I mean, thinking about the district, I have found, in the parking lot, you don't know if it's a parent or if it's a visiting team or something like that. I have found e-cigarettes, like empty pods. I have found a tobacco tin top, the smokeless tobacco tin top, and we have found those pouches. We are working with the custodial staff to report those things, and they do a really good job reporting if they're seeing those types of things in the garbage, in the bathrooms, outside. Also, the maintenance folks are really great about reporting that back. So at least we could be on top of kind of what those trends are. Unfortunately, like I said, we don't know, who that's coming from necessarily, but it's important to know kind of what's being used out there. Moving on to the cheap. So they're often inexpensive for the people to actually buy them. So those low prices this is just a jewel thing that they had online. And kids can just say, there's these sites that say, make sure that you're this old to go into it. And you just click yes, that you're that old, or make up a birth date, and you're in. The going price, this was in 2019. So Beverage King, 3 pods. So basically the equivalent of 3 packs of cigarettes was $6.99. Which is incredible, because if you look at 3 packs of cigarettes, even for the very cheapest pack of cigarettes, it's at least, about that $6 range per pack. So you're looking at $18 versus, $7. The real tough thing is that the report from kids that are buying it off the street, they're spending $35 to $75 per pod. So someone, of age, hopefully, and that's another piece of work that the Hartford Community Coalition and other community coalitions is doing doing kind of store audits and making sure that stores aren't selling to minors. And I think they're doing a pretty good job of that, working closely with in New Hampshire, it's the Liquor Control Department. In Vermont, it's the Department of Health, to make sure that stores are compliant with the ages. Where it breaks down is if you have a young adult who is over the age of 21, or an adult who is trying to make money, they can go buy 3 pods for $6.99 and then mark them up significantly. So that is a major concern, because we're going into access, but that is one of the pieces. We want to make this difficult, as difficult as possible, to get. They are everywhere. I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen those. I think I said there was 4 vape shops at my last count in West Lebanon. They're at the corner stores, gas stations. They are also online. This is another kind of shameless plug at this point for Hartford Community Coalition does a training about keeping kids safe online. You can go on to Instagram accounts and they get reported, they get taken down, but you can buy vapes, you can buy illegal drugs, you can buy cannabis. It is not legal. Instagram or these other sites, Snapchat, whatever, will take them down, but the damage is done. They'll just start up a new account. And these are coming from they can be coming internationally, or they can be coming within the states, within the region. So I guess the one thing is kids do need a credit card to make these purchases. So that would be kind of parents could be tracking their online purchases. That's what I would suggest, is making sure, like, hey, what's this credit card purchase to this place or that, just knowing what kids are doing online and what they're buying online. Availability obviously is saying these are fine. Again, 2019 was the first mandated warning labels on vaping products, just saying, hey, by the way, these are dangerous. Prior to that, youth and adults had no idea, and they thought that some people thought that they were safe products that they were using because there weren't those labels that they have to have on cigarettes and alcohol. And the more you see them around, the more likely they are to buy and use them. So if they're seeing them at home, if they're seeing friends using them, if they're seeing, adults using them in the community, the more normalized it is, the more likely they are to use it. So this is the really fun part. Again, please feel free to stop me. Just going to check in with Emily. Do we have any questions or?
Nope, not at all. I was putting a couple things in the chat for later, and I hit return. So pardon me. We'll get to those later. Sorry.
Okay. No, not at all.
Everybody's great.
This is the fun part, I think, is looking at all the pictures and seeing kind of like it's fun and scary at the same time, because it's like, whoa, they put in a lot of effort to market these. I'm not quite there yet. So this is, I think I already mentioned this. It's actually an aerosol. It's not a vapor. So it's more similar to huffing. Like spray cans or some kind of aerosol spray. It is an aerosol. And it is heated up by a metal coil. So it's basically a liquid that gets heated up by a metal coil and then shoots an aerosol of all sorts of chemicals into your lungs. They can be called e-cigs, vape pens, e-hookahs, e-pipes, e-pens, tanks, mods, vapes, electronic nicotine delivery systems. I think only like the health department calls them electronic nicotine delivery systems, or ENDS. But that is another thing that they're called now. More recently, like I had mentioned earlier, diffusers is something that people are trying to kind of remarket them to be as if they're less harmful. Sometimes they are referred to by brand names such as Juul or Juuling, BO, Blue, Fog is another one, or Puff pens. And so to be aware of that. Juul does seem to be kind of going out of style because they did get hit by the flavor ban. So I think they can only do menthol and kind of unflavored, if you will. So that doesn't seem to be as popular. So I think same as huffing paint, aerosol contains all these little nasty ultrafine particles along with the nicotine. You're getting that. The popcorn lung chemical, VOCs, volatile organic compounds. Those themselves are cancer causing chemicals. And then you have some heavy metals they found, such as nickel, tin, and lead, and that's actually from the metal coil itself. And those trace amounts of metal getting into and then heated up, getting into that liquid and heated up and then sucked in with the aerosol. So this is kind of the different types of e-cigarettes. So you can see there's a lot of different types. Every day there is new types. I would say number 2, the refillable pods. Again, that green one there, refillable pod is one that you see probably more is the refillable pods, because those are going to be ones that are able to be to have uh, people can add stuff into that, other things as well, and we'll get to that in just a second, because you can vape lots of different things. You could put all sorts of different things, as long as it has a liquid, as long as you make it a liquid base. This is where we lost people. People died in the summer of 2019 into that fall, where people were vaping cannabis, and they dissolved it in what they found was vitamin E acetate. And so they found lungs will just scar up and not work. So unfortunately, they dissolve it sometimes in chemicals that will do permanent damage, where you can no longer breathe. And people are losing their lives that way, unfortunately. So that goes through. The mods kind of are at the end. You may hear that 9 and 10. And 3 is also looks like a mod to me, but they classify that as a refillable pod. That's what it looks like. You'll see these are the rechargeable e-cigarettes. These are the ones that can explode on you on the left-hand side. So you'll read about some that are that actually blow up, and they're now banned from carry-on in planes, because they have had so many incidents of these blowing up in people's pockets, in people's face, causing burns. Then next to that is the disposable e-cigarette. So these are the ones, certainly looks more like a cigarette. This is what they originally first started with. They looked more like that. And you'll see the tank systems. Obviously, the tank systems, you will be typically putting other things, but you can put kind of anything in there. And then the vape/dab pens. Dab pens, when people use the word dab, that is, if they're talking about a dab pen, dabs are actually cannabis. You see some of these e-liquids and e-juices. They look, caramel, apple drop e-juice, and sour dream, and they look quite yummy. Vape jam, grape jam. It's really a bunch of marketing to get young folks to be eating this stuff. One of them's a peach cake donut. Yeah, it's those are the refillables. And then the pods on the right-hand side, you will see those if you're looking. You'll see them on the side of the roads. This is one of the big hazards of our time right now, is there's a lot of these pods on the side of the road. So you will find those. And liquid nicotine is incredibly toxic, and it does absorb through your skin. So somebody could get incredibly sick and or die. They have had a few cases of kids that have, like, littles that have chewed on these pods and passed away from them. These are kind of the new and emerging, and this is always changing. So, it's new and emerging, but now it's kind of old. Like those Stigs are now, it says new and emerging, but this is new and emerging as of, 2 years ago. It's kind of totally different now, but probably the most popular of these is those Stig ones there. This is the basics of how it works. It has a battery. This is every e-cigarette. So all those different ones that we saw there, they all look very different, but they have those basic components. They all have a battery. They all have what's called an atomizer, which heats the e-liquid. So that also contains the coil. They all have a cartridge, or a cart, it's called. So you may hear people talking about, I'm going to get my cart. Or pick up a cart. That's what they're talking about, because that would be what they would actually be buying or purchasing. in a refillable is just carts. And then a mouthpiece onto that. So, we already talked about this. Absolutely. Other things, any other substance can be put in there as long as it's in a solvent, basically, and in a liquid. So, what we're commonly seeing is cannabis dabs, shatter, or honey, or other terms that are used. And that's a popular substitute with up to 90% THC. And I can talk more about that another time. We'll talk just about cannabis. They're also extracting out the CBD, which also counteracts THC. So not only is it 90%, it also doesn't have any CBD in there. So it's even more potent. And so just to give you an idea about that, a typical marijuana flower would be about 20% is about where that's at. And in the 90s it was about 10% THC. So this is incredibly potent THC, which is a hallucinogen. It is causing kids to become psychotic. And it's incredibly dangerous for their brains, for their developing brains. So I think we've talked about most of this, open systems you can add, and closed systems you can't. And I talked about the vitamin E acetate. So we are seeing a huge increase in cannabis vaping and cannabis use across the board, for youth. And again, this is destigmatization. It's a lot of misinformation. It's the ease of access, and it's kind of everything being in these cute little packages. These really put on here saying, these can be up to 97% THC. Now, these are actually, when you have a liquid like this, it is, they're using alcohol and butane. Butane is lighter fluid. Or they're using, they can use a solvent like propane as well. Again, really explosive. And these are typically done in home-based labs. And so we have had explosions. I think Burlington was the last explosion I heard of within the last several years, because these are really explosive compounds, and also really not good to be inhaling. Now, this here is when I talk about a flower or cannabis bud. These are what we're talking about. Sometimes it can look slightly different, but that's basically what you're looking at. It would typically look more like the right hand corner, like kind of more broken up. But this is the advertising, right? Cannabis toffee chocolate and canna punch is what that's called. The edibles are incredibly dangerous. And I give kids poison control number all over my door in the high school. It is a medical emergency. You can overdose on cannabis, and you can have seizures. You can have very negative effects. The number one overdose that they're receiving calls about at the Poison Control Center number as of pre-COVID was these cannabis candies with young children, because they're often not in child safe packaging. They're not labeled. Sometimes they are homemade. They're just like a box of cookies somewhere or brownies in the house. And if kids get their hands on that can be incredibly dangerous, because just one of these candies would get someone significantly impaired. But I mean, what kid eats like one gummy, right? Like if they didn't know what this was, they could eat a lot. So just quickly, other modes of ingestion. So this is what they call a bowl so you'll hear them talk about bowl on the left-hand side, and then bongs, water bongs on the right-hand side. Obviously, if you see any of these things, it's a sign that there's some use. So are e-cigarettes safe? No. The Juul CEO actually said this in a statement on August 27th, 2019. I think he lost his job after that, but it was refreshing to see that somebody actually admitted that. So e-cigarettes are not safe, just as tobacco products. It's the same. They contain nicotine. Secondhand vape is we're also starting to figure out that just like we did with secondhand smoke, secondhand vape, um, uh, aerosol is also unsafe. You can be getting a little bit of all those nasty chemicals I talked about earlier in that secondhand vape. If you can smell it, it's going into your lungs and you can be getting those negative effects as well. We need a lot more research. This is new. So we don't have the long-term data. It took us, 30, 40 years for us to get that from cigarettes. So as of October 1st of 19, there were 15 deaths reported in the E-Valley stuff. And again, I'll point you to the Student Assistance Program website page now has all sorts of more information on this. How do we know if our kids are vaping? So unexplained sweet scent. So it's hard to describe, but you'd know it if you smelled it. It smells kind of like a sweet scent that should not be in a bathroom, especially. It's almost like a sticky sweet scent. Unfamiliar products, obviously any of those pictures, that's why I included those. Any of those or unfamiliar, sometimes they look like USB drives or batteries or charging devices that you don't recognize. Obviously, also checking on your credit card or your child's credit card, whoever's credit card, right? To make sure you know what they're purchasing online, as that is a way that they get those, or checking in with them about kind of where they're spending their money, because this is expensive, especially if somebody is using 1 to 3 pods a day. That is going to add up very quickly. So mood swings, irritability, and restlessness, those are all side effects of nicotine use and substance use, but really nicotine use. A sudden decline in grades, performance, a motivation are other signs. Flushed face and lightheaded, that's a sign of high blood pressure, and that is a direct correlation, direct side effect of nicotine. And if you're concerned as a parent, nicotine testing is available, just like substance use testing. You can get that at kind of any pharmacy you can go to and purchase. You can use health savings account or your health account to purchase those. You can also get those through urgent care. You can request testing as well. I don't know that they have nicotine testing, but you can talk to your primary care doctor about any of that. And I would encourage you all to be talking to your primary care doctor if you do have any concerns about your child using substances, or if you want to stop using yourself. So with all this being said, what can we do? How can we make a difference? So on that, I want to just pause for a second and go over to Emily and just ask, what do we have for questions before we get into the proactive
Nothing.
uplifting part?
Keep going, Jeanette. Woohoo!
Are you kidding? Are people asleep yet? I
No,
cannot.
we're not sleeping. We're not sleeping. We're still here.
Okay.
Yay, look at that. Sarah's back online. I'm sure Barbara's still there.
I can talk a lot.
No, we've been here the whole time. No, it's all good. It's all good. Keep it going.
Okay, because I can nonstop talk for hours. So
You got this.
I love this stuff. I mean, I don't love that. I love talking about this stuff, and because this is where the power's at, is educating ourselves as parents, as community members, what this is all about, what it looks like, what it smells like. I have to say, some of the most enlightening conversations that I've had are not staring at a screen doing a professional development or going to a training. It's been actually going into a vape shop and asking questions, and they have actually been really receptive of that. I'm a parent, I'm concerned, and what are these products? Can you show me this? And they actually they haven't run me out of any shop yet. So and talking to your kids too, just openly having not these big conversations, but little 2-minute conversations as you're going in the car, just you hear something on the radio about vaping, or you say, oh, there was this vaping presentation I went to, or, and I learned this. What do you think about that? Or do you have any thoughts about that? Do you see that? Also with the vaping advisory that we did at the middle school, those can open up some questions for kids. And so just being aware of that, and certainly pushing them back my way, say, you know what, go ask Miss Potter. We have an SAP for a reason, so that she might be able to answer your questions. So certainly knowing the laws and following vaping news, if you will. And you can get onto some folks. I'm trying to think. Tall Cop is one of them. You can get email letters kind of just saying like, these are the newest news trends. And certainly starting or engaging in local prevention efforts, and I put a plug in here for Hartford Community Coalition, with a link to that as well. So they stay up to date with this stuff, and really start a lot of legislative efforts and local movements, as well as prevention movements. So we're very grateful for that within this community, that we have a drug-free communities grant recipient, and so we can leverage that support as well. I just wanted to put in here about the 84 movement in Massachusetts. And it's called 84 because that's the number of youth not smoking in Massachusetts. Now it's 92%. If this were Vermont, as of 2019, it'd be called the 72%, because nearly a quarter of Vermont kids use some kind of tobacco regularly. But I think we need to emphasize that a majority, sometimes for kids, it feels like everybody is using, because that's what they see, right? Like that's the one kid that sticks out. But if we can reframe that as the majority of students, the majority of youth are not using. So this just talks more about that, just providing basic facts about vaping. There is a whole lot of, I'm going to switch over to the student assistance program page, with lots of resources, both in English and Spanish. There's lots of videos. Sometimes those I find are easier to kind of watch a video and then to talk directly about not having anything. You can watch a video and then kind of talk for a few minutes about it. And some of them are pretty brief. So the most important message we can give kids is e-cigarettes contain nicotine, and a lot of it. Yeah, they blow up and cause serious burns and harms. And yes, people are getting serious lung diseases from them. And yes, people have died from vaping. So, and dispel the myths, it's not harmless water vapor. There are dangers. It is an aerosol that's extremely addictive. And one of the biggest things that kids, for whatever reason, really it seems to hit with them is just how industries are targeting them and using them to make money and hook them on products. That seems to really get kids angered and irritated. And how Jules spent $300,000 on influencers and
Jeanette,
Yeah.
I have a question. Jeanette,
yeah.
I have a question. So bottom line is anything that any child vapes is bad, regardless of what it is, because it's the aerosol.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, you shouldn't be vaping anything, just like you really shouldn't be smoking anything. That's your lungs only want clean, pure air.
Right.
Mostly oxygen, a little bit of nitrogen in there and some other like minor stuff. But
Okay.
yeah, your lungs want clean oxygen.
Okay.
And what they found with the vaping is that it's even harder to heal because that actually is scarring the lung tissues. Versus smoking cigarettes was just killing those that lung tissue. It could kind of grow back a little bit.
Right.
So we already went over this. So
Janet, I have one more question, Janet. This is a little bit of a side question, but are you going to be working with whoever does the school trainings? Because all of this information, you know, the beginning of the year when teachers have to learn all of the health stuff that teenagers are doing, it's still way outdated.
Right.
And that would be something that the district should consider updating all of that about drugs and the vaping, because it's like 2015 or 2005. Yeah. It's really
it moves really fast. And absolutely, you are absolutely right. We did talk about, I wanted to do a DITEP training for all staff. And we talked about this at the high school. The unfortunate thing is that we have so many other things, and especially with COVID and just trying to figure out where that fits into in-service days is really difficult, but that absolutely is on the plan. I think the first step in that is putting it on the HSD website, having these meetings. I hope to have these monthly with different substances and having parents involved in this, and having staff involved in it. And certainly that is something that has been asked. I'm going to stop sharing now. Boop.
I also think that's a really great point, Sarah, of the trainings that, you know, even the video trainings, if it's something more in-house instead of the.
Right.
Yeah. Those mandatory videos that we have to watch. I mean, even if it is, by the time it gets made, even this presentation, if it's outdated next year, it's so much more current than whatever we're learning about now. And
right, for sure. Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea.